Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
Tomorrow. I love you tomorrow. You're only... Scott, you're not allowed to laugh in the middle of my...
Sorry.
Tomorrow. I love you tomorrow. You're only a day away. Annie was optimistic about tomorrow, but with that attitude, she won't get much done today. In reality, tomorrow was designed for procrastinators and never actually comes. So listen today as Scott and I discuss the trouble with tomorrow and other great ideas on episode 510 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
Can't wait to dig into this one. There's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of opportunity, Bill. And I think all of us can relate to whatever we bring up when it comes to procrastination. I think we're all guilty of it. And
well,
it's like, what is it? Eat the frog or, do something like that to get over the procrastination.
Well, I think that we all suffer from it at times, and identifying it and moving past it is something that's important to do. So Maybe there's some people out there like my wife who just can dig into everything and get everything done. But I do like to procrastinate. So let's, but before we talk about that, do you have some announcement about the book club?
So no book club today, tomorrow, or the following week. We've got a guest coming up. Amy Kay was supposed to be with us today. We had to rearrange the schedule. So she'll be with us next week. And then we've got Dale Merle on the following week, and then we'll be picking up the book club on May 25th. We'll be talking about it. So stay tuned for more.
So for anyone who's been procrastinating reading the book.
Yes, I'm one of them.
This is the time to go out and get the book, The Secrets of Success. Is that, I can never remember.
Success Principles.
Success Principles. Yeah. Yes. So
this segment is brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door by Steve Kloida.
I'm Ron Lehman, and I want to tell you about one of the best sales books I've ever read. The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door, gives you the tools and techniques to fill your pipeline and achieve more sales success. The author is Steve Kloida, known as the prospecting expert, and this book proves it. So if you want to learn from the master, get The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door. It's available at theprospectingexpert.com. Just click on the Buy Book button.
Well, our topic today is the trouble with tomorrow. It's about procrastination. John Maxwell says the secret of your success is found in your daily routine. And that means that the most important day of the week is today. Mm-hmm. And what we do today will create the tomorrow that you want. But in my opinion, Scott, tomorrow is worthless. It's the trap of the procrastinator. What do you think?
It really is. It really is. Why put off to...
Why do today?
Why do it today when I can put it off till tomorrow? I think is the line. I just try to erase that stuff from my mind, which is why it doesn't come out very freely. But I think it's easy for us to get discouraged, overwhelmed, and feel like, we can just take care of it another day. And you know what? Another day comes and it really takes away opportunities, and it ends up costing us money. I really think, unless we're really working on investments every day, then is an opportunity to make more money. But we need to be able to look at what we need to accomplish and commit to doing it on a daily basis. And I love Maxwell's quote. And I think he's got another one that, yesterday ended last night. And when we get discouraged on stuff, we need to be able to just say, I'm going to recommit today because yesterday ended last night. And then focus on what you need to accomplish in small bite-sized pieces too.
Well, what gets us trapped in this illusion of tomorrow, right? How do we get ourselves focused on getting the work done today? So those are kind of the two areas we want to talk about. What is a trap? What are the tomorrow traps that we have? And then what can we do to get around it? So my tomorrow trap number one is laziness. Now, I think people make a lot of excuses. I'm busy. I'm this, I'm that. I think sometimes we're just lazy. We just don't want to do the hard work that it takes. And so we put it off, and hopefully it will go away. It's that piece of paper that we look at on our desk, and instead of dealing with it, we put it in the piece of paper pile until the opportunity is gone. And now we can say, well, oh, I missed it. So that's not my fault.
Or we think it's going to go away and we don't have to deal with it too.
Yeah. We hope it'll go away. That's the The hope is not a strategy, right?
Right.
But I do think that we like to blame other things. Fear of failure, and some of those we're going to talk about. But are we really doing that, or are we just being lazy? And so, sucking it up and getting to work sometimes is what we need to do.
So true.
All right. The second one that I have is this is kind of what we talked about just a moment ago, but we want to avoid the difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes doing hard things is uncomfortable for us. And so we have a piece of work that we have to do, a phone call that we have to make, a client that we have to give bad news to. All of these things are uncomfortable, and they tend to fall to the bottom of the things to do list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I know some people, when they leave a message, they won't return the call because they think the message will take care of itself. Oh, they'll figure it out. I'm not going to return the call. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's probably true in some cases. People just figure it out.
Yeah, there's a management strategy that says you want to force your people to figure things out. I have a 4-step process that when I'm dealing with people and they try to bring me their problems to solve for them, I give them that tool. It's an old Dale Carnegie tool, and it forces them to think through their problem and now come back to me with a proposed solution. And usually they figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that, people will drop their difficult things on me. A friend of mine says, don't make other people's problems yours.
Right.
And I think that's really true, that we tend to take on things of other people because we don't want to say no. So that can get us caught in a trap as well. So avoiding the difficult because we don't want to do it because it's uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah.
Third one I have is fear of failure. So if I don't try, I can't be accused of failing.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And no risk, no reward. And if you're not failing, you're not moving ahead. You're not trying. And I always like to ask salespeople questions at weekly sales meetings. I said, how many of you failed last week? And I hope that they all raised their hand because they failed at certain things and hopefully they figured it out to be able to do it better. Not that we want to fail. We don't strive to fail. But if we're not failing, we're not doing anything. We're not moving ahead.
Yeah, the analogy I use is downhill skiing. And what I say is, do you fall? And if you never fall when you're skiing, you're probably never getting to the real edge of your capability. Right. The hills that you're trying, or the speed at which you're going, or the turns that you're making, you're not trying hard enough if once in a while you don't catch a bad edge and fall. Right. So you're taking it too easy. And I think life can force us into that with that fear of failure. And that could be a real thing that can attack us. But most successful people that I know have failed, as you said, with your salespeople. They failed over and over and over again. They're almost proud of their failures because those failures then lead to the successes. And I don't know, what would you say out of all the phone calls you make? Let's say you're making 50 phone calls. How many successes do you hope for?
If I get 4 conversations with 50 calls, I'm having a great day.
And one appointment.
Yeah, that's a fabulous day. I mean, Michael Jordan is used so often when it comes to failure, and Ty Cobb is used so often when it comes to failure. And you look at, how many game-winning shots did Michael Jackson have in his career? And
Michael Jordan. Michael Jackson didn't.
Michael Jordan. That's right.
Michael Jackson,
sports fan.
He sang songs.
That's right. I get him confused all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Michael Jordan had the ball how many times? Like 697 times, and I can't remember the number. And how many of them did he make? 119. So that's still a lot. But, he goes down as one of the all-time greatest basketball players. Ty Cobb, same thing. How many hits did he get? How many strikeouts did he have? So it's, not that we want to have those kind of odds, but sometimes in contrast, those people are successful. In contrast, in our business, when it comes to failure, what is an acceptable success rate? And I think every industry is different on that.
Yeah, but you've got to have the failures in order to have the successes. If you're only going to make the call when you're going to be successful, you'll have very few opportunities to make that call, and you'll never find anybody new. So you've got to overcome that fear of failure and to avoid procrastination. Another one, lack of organization. So do you have a to-do list, and have you prioritized that
Mhm.
to-do list, because what some people do, they do their list and everything has equal weight, and they took out the trash and they called a friend and they cleaned up around their desk and they picked up their, organized their pencils and
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
that equals the same weight as calling that client that you have to give bad news to, or making 10 prospecting calls. And those things fall off the table because they're uncomfortable. So some people have no organization, but then some people only have the bare minimum of organization. And both of those can keep them from doing the most important things, the difficult things. And then those go to tomorrow. And then, once those have been on your list for about 5 days, they fall off your list because I guess it wasn't important that I call that person.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
important that I do that. I remember somebody saying once that, it's the things that you don't have to do
Mm.
that are going to make you successful. I don't have to make my 20 calls today, and I don't have to make them tomorrow. But if I have enough tomorrows attached together, then I have no calls at all and I fail.
Mhm.
So it's not the little failures, it's the big ones you have to avoid. The little failures are going to make you successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Have a goal list and a to-do list, and think about some of the distractions that you're going to have that's going to avoid you from completing those.
Right.
So good advice.
Right. Yeah. I have that hot client list that I have to keep updating and keep thinking about those people.
Yeah.
So, all right. The last one I have is distractions. And are you distractible? How distractible are you? You have to think about, am I the type of person that welcomes distraction? So it's almost like I'm putting distractions around me. My phone dinger is always on. So every time a text comes in, even though usually it's not important, I'll stop what I'm doing and look at that because I want to be distracted. When there's some little sidebar thing on the Google search that I'm doing, I'll go to that distraction. So distractions happen. How distractible are you? And then the other thing is I think you can be distracted by too many priorities.
So true.
So if I go through my list and everything is an A priority, then everything is a distraction. But if I focused on 3 main things that I've got to get done today, then my day can get much more focused.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice.
All right. So let's talk about overcoming procrastination. What's an idea that you've got, Scott?
Well, I think being really committed to what you want in life, and to be able to look at what are the rewards of those commitments and how do they affect you personally. It's the same process that any salesperson uses when they're selling a product or service to a prospect: is how does this solution affect them personally? And when you really focus on that, I think it increases the commitment to the activity so that you end up accomplishing it, and celebrate the success of accomplishment too. And I think that sometimes is overlooked, is celebrating the rewards of an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think a lot of times if we can get ourselves focused on what that goal is, whether it's a new car or a better house, financial security for my family, whatever that big goal is while you're in sales, if you can focus on that, then you can help you overcome some of those procrastination barriers, because that goal is more important than my fear of failure. That goal is more important than the distraction that I have. So I think that's really a good point, is that you need to look at the big picture rather than looking at the little things. And then sometimes just get yourself going, So my first one is for overcoming is control your environment. If you look around your desk, how many distractions do you have built in to your desk? How many shiny objects do you have sitting on your desk going, oh, there's a project. Oh, yeah. And because you haven't organized yourself and you haven't put it on a to-do list, those things fall into your mind. The to-do list allows you to get things off your mind, knowing that you'll come upon it when it comes into its focus, and then you can do it. And you don't have to look at that little thing on the pile or go through that pile and try to find it. And then I think the other thing about your environment is you need to do one job at a time. So often we're distracted by other important things, but we can't do 2 jobs. It's been proven that we cannot multitask. We need to focus. So sometimes if you have the radio on, if you have songs on, if you have your headphones in, I think sometimes we're lying to ourselves that I can focus on that talk radio and then still get my writing done. Well, it it throws you off. It throws you into another world. The brain is made to focus. So one job at a time, focus on it, do it, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah. Good advice.
All right. I think a second thing to do when we look at procrastination, because the big projects can seem overwhelming. I know you've written a book. I think that's a very difficult thing to do. I've written a lot of material for my website. And I think often when we get a big project, I just finished a 26-page document for a client. That was a big project that I had to do for them. And so I had to break it down. There were, I think, 5 or 6 sections to it. And I tried to do one section every 2 days and then get it over the client for approval. And so many projects, they really need to be done over time. I couldn't have done those 26 pages in 1 day or 2 days. So I had to have time to think and consider, and they built on each other. So I had to break it down into other steps. So one of the things I like to think about is what's one step that I can start today? If I have a big project, what's the one thing I can do today? And maybe it's figure out what the chunks are, or reserving time in my calendar for those chunks that I need to do. I like Robert Schuller. He said, beginning is half done. And sometimes we look at that big project and it overwhelms us. So we never do anything on it instead of starting to find the little steps that can get me moving forward.
I think some people just need to start by showing up on time. And I mean, really, that could be half the job, is just showing up on time, and start there. And then move on to making other greater commitments. As you start making small commitments, it's easier for you to make greater commitments. Think about the reputation that you have as a salesperson when it comes to working with prospects and customers. Is what words would your prospect use to describe you in your absence? And hopefully committed, hopefully meeting deadlines, hopefully showing up on time is one of them. But if you can't show up on time, if you can't make the small commitments and the small promises, how can you make the big ones?
I think that's absolutely true. And I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Russ, the other day, and our conversation turned to this. And I told him, I think that if you can get to work on time, get to appointments on time, and have the work done on time, you have put yourself into probably the top 5% of the world.
Right.
Most people that I know just can't get anything done. And even when they have a project that has to be done and they don't get it done on time, they have to keep changing the deadline. They keep moving it for whatever reason. They're not able to get it done on time. And it's the very rare person. And I think the top 5%, you put yourself in it. If you can get dressed professionally and get to appointments on time with the work that you needed to have done.
And I think this also works for some of our personal habits, going to the gym or going to the club and working out. If you just commit to driving to the club and getting into the parking lot, what's going to happen next? You're going to get out of the car and start heading for the locker room or the workout floor.
Right.
And it's just getting to the club. You don't say, well, I don't want to work out. I'm too tired. I don't have the energy. I just want to chill out and let my body rest. It's like, well, I'm just going to drive to the parking lot of the club. Okay, let's just start by doing that.
That's right. I'm just going to go there and take a shower. I'm not going to work out.
That's a start.
Get me there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Another thing that I think is important, again, we've talked about it a couple of times with that prioritized task list. The list isn't enough. It has to be prioritized, and you have to create a sense of urgency. This is what some people never have. That feeling of, I spent some time in Spain in high school, and mañana was a great word. Mañana is the Spanish word for tomorrow. And so we'll get it done tomorrow. And when you live, I found that cultures that have a very warm place to live, they tend to like mañana. They tend to like tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be the same as today. We who live up here in the Northland, tomorrow might be a sideways snow and 15 inches, right?
That's right.
So the house better be ready by September to get inside. And so the changing of the seasons says mañana isn't there. And I do think that people in cold countries can be a lot more productive sometimes than people when tomorrow looks the same as today weather-wise. But I think we do need to create a sense of urgency. One of the tools I use is I'll put a timer on, and maybe it's 20 minutes, and I'm just going to work on this project for 20 minutes or a half an hour or an hour. And I just buzz as fast as I can and get as much done in that hour as I can. And then I can walk away from it. But I like seeing how much I can get done in a particular period of time. It helps me push distractions away and get focused with a real false sense of urgency. Another sense of urgency that I'll create is a client will say, I'll meet with a client and I'll say, okay, I'm going to bring you back a report. And he'll say, okay, well, just let me know when you have that done. I said, no, that will never get done.
Right.
That report will, I said, how about next Friday? Now I've got an appointment with that client. I'm going to get that report done before next Friday when I have that appointment. So I create a sense of urgency. I create a deadline with my client because I know the way I work. I know I'm not going to sit down on that. I might as well tell you the truth, Scott. I might as well make that appointment for 2 days away because I'm not going to start working on it till 2 days before anyway.
Right.
So don't give myself 2 weeks because it's just a waste of my time. I'll get it rushed through because I work best on deadline. So prioritize, create that sense of urgency, move yourself beyond that desire to procrastinate by having a commitment made to someone else.
Here's one of the challenges that I have in a situation similar to that, working with clients, is when I set a deadline and I fulfill the deadline and I fulfill the expectations, and then I ask the client to do something and they don't fulfill the commitment and they don't fulfill the expectations, it's very frustrating. And if I subscribe to those low standards, then I am degrading the value of my services and my commitment to my client, because the client doesn't make the same commitment as I do to the project. And it's just very challenging. Bill, have you ever been through that? Or if some of our listeners are dealing with that same thing, what would be some advice that you would have to how to deal with that as a salesperson when clients don't meet deadlines?
Chill out.
What's a chill out?
Chill out. I don't expect excellence from clients. My job is to bring them excellence.
Yeah.
So my client's going to miss deadlines. He's going to change the appointment. He's going to miss things. He's not going to return my phone call. He's not always going to return my emails. I have to try 3 or 4 times. That's the expectation if they're the client. It's my job to get the project moving. It's not the client's job to get the project moving. So I just figure they're not going to get their job done in time, and I'll try to hold them to a particular task, but they're the client. They're paying the bill. I've got a guy who's called me about 10 times from Comcast, and I keep needing to look at the contract he sent over to see if I want to change. And I just never get around to it. It's just not that important to me. But, the other day I got a call from his boss. It's like, hey, he's doing a good job, but I'm just, it's just not the most important thing on my list.
Right.
And I'll get to it when I get to it. So his job is to continue to call me. I don't mind if he continues to call me.
Sure.
And remind me. And if he gets tired of doing that, then the whole thing might fall off the table because I'm the client. Mm-hmm. So I understand what you're saying. I do wish and hope that clients get eager enough to do something, but sometimes they get distracted, just like all of us do. And It's my job to keep them focused. So I don't know if that's an answer for you, but
no, it's a good one to think about when I'm in that situation, and for our listeners to think about it when they're in that situation. So
yeah. All right. My last one is to reject perfectionism. I think the desire to be perfect, and we know people in our lives, this is not my desire, by the way. I'm not a perfectionist, so this is not my problem. But if I have to be perfect, failure is inevitable. And if I fear failure and I have to be perfect, that's a real bad combination. So I was listening to John Maxwell the other day. I like John Maxwell's material. He was talking about writing. He said, I read my first book the other day that I wrote 75 books ago. Yeah. It sucked. He said, I would never write anything like that today, but I had to write the first book and have it suck in order for the next book to be better and the next book to be better. So the best way to create something great is to start with something okay, and then either get better or maybe fix it and have a good editor. But you are going to fail if you have to be perfect, because perfection seldom comes. So I think it's like you said with your clients, if you expect them to be perfect, that's going to be a high bar for them to hit.
Yeah, very true. And I struggle with perfectionism a little bit. I know that sounds a little bit ironic for those people that know me that are listening. And I have to think about, what is the goal? what is good enough? And I struggled with this when I put my book together. I kept editing it and editing it and editing it, and I kept improving it. Like John Maxwell, when he looks at his first book, he goes, "This was not good." If he could have kept working on it, it probably could have been great, but he would have never published any other books either. So it got to a point where I just needed to hire an editor, and I had a great editor, Sue Philbin, edited my book, and I just turned it over to her, and I said, "You deal with it, and just make it good enough to be published." And she did a fabulous job on that. And I go through and I read it, and I'm like, wow, I sounded really good just through the help of a good editor. But she did not take my voice out of the editing. But if I would have kept working on it, it would have never been published. I mean, what is the goal? What is good enough to meet the goal? And then
when have I communicated what I want to communicate here?
Yeah.
And I think even I when we talk like a book or an article or something we write, I think we get better when we write different ones, and the next one we write, and we change our voice a little bit, and to continue to edit the first one over and over again, like you say, never gets you anywhere.
Right.
But to write the next one, and it's a little bit better, and it leaves a little less editing in the next one, and by the time you've done 20 or 30, you've kind of found your style and what you like to do, and sometimes it's like, hey, you either like my style or you don't. The hell with you.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes we try to be everything to everyone, and that's hard as well. And I think there's another one that can stop us from doing things. Trying to be everything to everybody keeps us from finding out who we are. So I do have a resource for this that people can read on my website. It's called Selling Success from Accidental to Habitual. We'll have that on the Winning at Selling page.
Our golden nugget today is by Og Mandino.
One of our favorites.
I think hopefully everybody has heard of the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. And the quote is, "Action will destroy your procrastination." Yep. And this is a line that I highlighted out of that book. And I love that book. And I was doing a little bit of research on Og Mandino. And you know what his real name is? First name?
No.
Augustine.
Ah.
And he fought in World War II. He was a pilot. And guess who his co-pilot was when he was flying?
I have no idea.
Jimmy Stewart.
Was it really? Oh my goodness.
Oh. Yeah. I mean,
I'll have to read up on that because I'm a big fan of Jimmy Stewart. So my favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life, and my favorite director is Frank Capra, who directed him in that. So anyway, cool. I love that personal stuff. Yeah. If you haven't read Og Mandino, well, you probably haven't read enough sales books. So
right. Yeah. It's a short book. It's well worth the time.
Excellent. So for all of this information, go to winningatselling.com. The show notes are there. You can go back and listen to any of our podcasts. So go to winningatselling.com.
Next week, Amy K. Hutchins is going to be with us. No book club. I know everybody listening is really going to enjoy her energy. She just brings it. It's like the old saying is, if you didn't bring it with you, you're not going to find it here. I'm telling you, she's going to bring it on the next episode of Winning at Selling podcast.
Looking forward to it. Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.